The flow state has 4 cycles, and most people neglect the final stage, making it increasingly harder to achieve flow and eventually leading to a burnout. So let's explore how you can experience more flow and be 5 times more productive and 7 times more creative by working less and playing more. And before we get into that, let me tell you that once you join my newsletter down below, I will send you a free copy of my book Pistis Demystifying Jung and Psychology, in which I cover Carl Jung's whole theory. So about a couple of months ago, I completed my challenge of writing 1 article and recording 1 video per week for 50 weeks straight. And now that this challenge and these habits are finally established, I said that my next goal was to make time to play more music. I don't know, I just felt like I was needing it. My soul was needing it after all this hard work. So to start, what I did is I just started picking up my guitar more. And I usually, in between sessions, in between clients, in between work tasks. And this added up to about 1 hour per day, usually in 2 sessions, so 20-30 minutes here and 20-30 minutes there. And this started to make me feel a bit better, but in about 3 to 4 weeks, I got bored and frustrated because, first of all, I wasn't protecting this time, and I was also frustrated because I wasn't progressing much. I wasn't getting into the zone. I wasn't getting into that good flow when you are playing music. So these short periods just weren't enough time to achieve flow, and also my lack of skills were making it harder to truly enjoy what I was doing. And that's when I decided to do everything differently. So first of all, I blocked 1 hour on my schedule to play guitar every day. And I started reviewing exercises and musical pieces I used to play back in college. And that's when I felt muscle memory coming back and started making progress. And guess what? I also started experimenting more flow. So initially, I picked up my guitar because it just felt like there was something deep missing in my life. But I had no idea how much playing music would affect all other areas of my life. And it started with simple things like feeling more relaxed, more peaceful, and my head was just clear for most of the time. And then I noticed I was getting into flow more easily when I'm writing, recording videos, or going for walks. And I was also more present with my clients and my relationships, and mostly my wife. So suddenly, I was even more productive, creative, and experiencing more flow in all areas of my life. And this puzzled me for a while until I remembered the flow cycle and realized how much I was neglecting the last stage. So that said, the flow cycle is made of 4 stages. We have struggle, release, then we finally experience flow, and the final one is active recovery. And we're gonna go over each one of them now. So the first stage is when you are wrestling with the task at hand, and it feels difficult because, well, you're still learning new skills, but you just have to push a little bit until they can become automatized. And if you are struggling, it doesn't mean you're not good enough or that you are on the wrong path. In fact, it's the exact opposite. The struggle phase is a sign you're growing, and experience flow is right around the corner. But for it to happen, an important shift must occur. And you have to change your relationship with pain and effort. And you must see it as a necessary part of the process. So for instance, when you go to the gym, you realize you need to feel you're pushing yourself. Otherwise, your muscles just won't grow. So enduring discomfort literally makes you stronger. But again, it's important to never push yourself outside the challenge skills balance, because this is a prerequisite for flow. So here's another example. If you have never run in your life, you have to drop the childish idea that you have to run for 20 miles in your first week. You gotta respect the process and make small increments, just like progressive overload. So after the initial struggle, your brain enters the incubation period and digests all the information and effort you've put in. So that's when we experience that nice release and relaxation. And this prepares us to experience the flow state. And we finally feel like all of our hard work is paying off. So we become more present, focused, deeply embodied, and our senses are heightened. And that's when we come up with brilliant sentences. Our hands start moving by themselves when we are playing music or painting. And that's also when I experience an interesting shift during therapy sessions. I'm locked in with my clients and I know exactly what to say. And sometimes I can even anticipate what they're thinking and feeling, and I can direct the process. So experiencing flow is truly amazing, but this process is highly taxing for our brains and bodies, and it requires a tremendous amount of energy. So if we are physically and mentally unfit, we won't be able to sustain this process for long. And if you're always constantly fatigued and on the verge of a burnout, we also won't be able to enjoy the flow state. So this leads us to the importance of recovery, the last stage, but not any recovery. It must be an active form of recovery. So the final stage of flow is the one you usually neglect. However, it's crucial to distill what you've learned and for the memory consolidation process. So first, the obvious things. Sleep, proper nutrition, physical exercise, and taking enough sunlight are the foundational blocks for experiencing flow. Now the less obvious things. Doom scrolling, watching Netflix while drinking beers, or losing yourself on another YouTube rabbit hole won't cut it, because this overloads your mind with more mental clutter. Instead, your brain needs active forms of recovery that promote alpha, theta, and delta brainwaves, like walking in nature, mindfulness, stretching, sauna, playing with your dog or kids, engaging with creative hobbies, and of course, deep sleep. And some people complain that active recovery seems like more work. And I'm sorry to tell you, but if developing your craft and talents is important to you, this is what it takes. And active recovery and taking proper care of yourself have to become a priority. And that's why I cut back on caffeine and started to prioritize playing guitar. And not only this is much more fun and rewarding, but again, it makes entering the flow state much easier. And lastly, I know that a lot of people have trouble finding the motivation to do all of this, and it seems like a lot of work. But there's an interesting mind shift you can experiment with. Think about putting everything in service of your craft and creativity. Think about doing everything in service of your greatest aspirations. Because maybe you think it's pointless to eat well and do physical exercise. No, only because of your health. But this might become important if you want to write a bestseller, compose insane musical pieces, or become the greatest architect. This is especially important because the flow state usually lasts for 90 to 120 minutes. So you should focus on the quality of our work rather than putting in mindless hours. So if you only have a couple of hours of flow per day, I think you want to use them well. And finally, you can learn more about how flow helps you overcome addictions in the next video.